Thank you guys for coming to St. Mark's. Yeah. A street known for food and art and drugs. Yeah, there are so many drugs on the street. I was out there today. A guy asked me if I smoke weed. I said no, and he goes, ugh, grow up. Yeah, that's what it's like over here. I'm not a big weed guy, but a lot of my friends are. So a lot of times I end up sounding like the party pooper. I'll be like, hey man, be careful with that stuff. And they'll be like, don't worry man, weed doesn't change my behavior one bit. I'm like, really? Weed doesn't change your behavior one bit? That sounds like a terrible drug. Like, what's the point of being high if you're just fully functional? Like, if you're on drugs but no one can tell, you got bamboozled. That is a scam. Like, the other day, this lady on heroin came up to me. She pulled down her pants and showed me her tit. I'm like, now that's a drug. Notice I said showed me her tit, not tits. There's a big difference. 2 tits, hot. 1 tit, troubling. Like, if you ever see a lone exposed breast, that is not sexual. That is either a new mom or a crackhead. She is trying to feed her baby or her addiction. Either way, don't look. It's rude. I was actually at a party the other day, and a bunch of people were doing cocaine. And I was shocked. Not that they were doing it, but that they were cutting lines of cocaine with a Costco card. I'm like, a Costco card? How much cocaine did you buy? What would cocaine at Costco even look like? Just some Colombian guy like, this is 100% pure Kirkland signature. We got the good stuff. But I've been traveling a lot. I recently did a show in Pennsylvania. I drove through the town of Bethlehem, PA. And on the highway, there was a sign for the exit. It said, Historic Bethlehem. I'm like, you can't call yourself Historic Bethlehem when you are easily the less historic Bethlehem. Like, if anything, that sign should say Bethlehem. No, not that one. Some stuff happened here, but it's not important. Like, it doesn't make any sense calling that town Historic Bethlehem. That would be like calling Michael B. Jordan the famous Michael Jordan. Like, come on, Bethlehem, pick a different lane. Stop trying to beat Jesus. It's not gonna happen. I don't drive a lot, but I did have to get my license renewed recently, so I had to take that dreaded trip to the DMV. And when I was in the DMV, on the wall, there was a poster with like 40 languages for people who don't speak English. And it said, point to your language. An interpreter will be called. An interpreter will be provided at no cost. And I was like, there is no way the DMV speaks all these languages. Like, in America, we have like 7 people who know another language, and we don't waste them at the DMV. Like, I have a hard time believing the DMV would accommodate people from other countries when they've never accommodated anybody ever for anything. Like, I don't think there's a bullpen of UN members back there just waiting to be deployed. Like, if anything, what happens is you point to your language, someone comes out and they go, hi, please come back when you speak English. That's the DMV I know. Oh, not a lot of people drive in New York. Like, in New York, if you have a car, that's like a big flex. People brag about having a car in New York City. I was on a date with a girl recently. She was bragging about having a car. She was like, guess what kind of car I have? I'll give you a clue. It's the car version of me. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? So I go, you have a Mini Cooper? She's like, yeah, how did you know? I'm like, well, every other car I thought of would have made you mad. Because cars are big multi-ton hunks of metal. There are very few that a woman would want to look like. Like, no matter how big you are, no lady's gonna be like, yeah, I'm a Dodge Ram. Am I tiny and delicate? Nah, built Ford tough. It's not happening. I am happy to be in New York, though, because the last trip I took, I stayed at a hostel. Yeah. Hot tip. Staying at a hostel is only cool if you're in another country. Yeah, like sharing a room with 6 people in Paris is an adventure. In Cleveland, more of a wake-up call. Okay. I showed up at the front desk like, I'm a backpacker. And they're like, no, you're a loser. I'm like, come on, I'm being resourceful. They're like, you're 34, you should have more resources. Do better. Yeah. I am in my 30s, but I like talking to people who are much older than me. I do. Because when they talk about the past, they always say stuff like, we didn't have a lot, but we were happy. Which is a beautiful sentiment, right? It is. But I'm a millennial, and I feel like when we get old, we're going to talk a little differently. We're going to be like, we didn't have a lot, but our parents did. So we mooched off of them as long as we could. Yeah, we invented getting kicked off health insurance. The first generation that ever stressed about turning 26. That had never been a bad age before, ever. Like, even when people used to die at 35, they were like, 26, you got 9 good years left. Congrats. Now 26-year-olds are like, damn, why didn't I break my arm last year? In November, I had Blue Cross. Now if I call an ambulance, I can't retire. Okay, that got a little too real for some of you. I know, it's a little sad sometimes. I have 2 sisters. I have an older sister and a younger sister. And my younger sister is 11 and a half years younger than me. Yeah, so I'm a millennial, she's Gen Z. So we often have a hard time communicating because Gen Z has their own lingo that they won't tell the rest of us about. So this one time, my little sister was babysitting. She called me on the phone. I asked her, what's up? And instead of saying, I'm babysitting, she goes, I'm with child. I'm like, what? Are you serious? She's like, yeah, what's the big deal? I'm like, well, you're only 22. Are you sure you're ready for that? She's like, yeah, I've been doing it since I was 13. I'm like, 13? How? She's like, I don't know. I just went there, I did it, they paid me, and I left. I'm like, you're getting paid for this? She's like, of course, I wouldn't do it for free. I'm not an idiot. I'm like, how many times have you been with child? She goes, dozens. I'm like, oh my God. Like, you didn't want to be with child this many times, right? She's like, of course not. I'm like, then what's your secret for dealing with an unexpected situation? She goes, well, you got to have a plan B. Okay, not a lot of Plan B fans in the crowd. East Village, I thought you guys would have been all over that. But both of my sisters are sweet, especially my younger one. The other day, she posted a picture of the 3 of us on Instagram with the caption, thank you for teaching me everything I know about being a strong, independent woman. And then she tagged me, but not our sister, which made both of us look bad because it looked like her big sister never cared and looked like her big brother just mansplained being a lady. I'm like, hey, you want to be a woman? Let me tell you everything I know from Joe Rogan. Yeah, when you're on your period, you're going to want to eat a lot of elk. And when you're pregnant, do a bunch of DMT, okay? That'll open up the baby's mind. It's very important. But my little sister just graduated college, so I'm very proud of her. Thank you. I went to her graduation, and it made me realize my favorite part of a graduation is watching all the students walk across the stage one by one. Because when they say a kid's name and you hear the reaction, you know exactly how many people love them. You know? You hear a big woo, and you're like, wow, what a support system. Then the next kid gets nothing, and you're like, damn, he did this all on his own. Poor Paraj Patel. Maybe someone cares about him, but not enough to fly from India. Oh, wait, he's from Tampa? That's way sadder. It's so much closer. But my sister and I, we're both trying to be successful, but everyone's definition of success is different, right? Like for some people, it's a dollar figure. For some people, it's a particular achievement. For me, I will feel like a success if I ever get to the point where I want to be dominated in bed. Yeah, because I've heard that's a rich guy thing. And I don't get it at all. There's one time this girl was like, hey, you want to get dominated in bed? I'm like, I'm getting dominated in life, so I'm fine. But you hear about this all the time, like these high-powered CEOs hiring these dominatrixes, because for them, getting beaten down is refreshing, you know? It's a nice change of pace. Can you imagine being so successful that you got to pay for low self-esteem? I can't. If a girl was like, I'm going to tie you up and spit in your mouth, I'd be like, I've already had a rough week. Why are we making it harder? So yeah, not into being dominated, but I was on a date with a girl recently. She started telling me about herself. She goes, I practice jujitsu. I'm like, really? Because I practice Judaism. And then she starts flirting with me. She's like, you know what? I think I could beat you up. I'm like, wow, you're that good at jujitsu? She's like, no, but I'm very anti-Semitic. Okay, that's the type of humor you guys want. I'll log that for the rest of the show. No. A lot of people can tell that I'm Jewish right away, and they're not afraid to tell me about it. Like the other day, this guy just came up to me and he goes, hey, you have the most Jewish nose I've ever seen. I was like, what the hell? Like, who do you think you are? He goes, a rabbi? I'm like, oh, he's not racist. He's just right. Like, he's speaking from a place of authority. Like, he's talking about my nose less like a bigot and more like a baseball scout. You know, like one of those old-timey scouts from the 1930s that's like, hey, sonny, let me tell you something. I traveled this whole country, never seen a nose more Jewish than yours. I think you're going to be a star. Temple Shalom wants to make you an offer. What do you say? Thank you. Yeah, I matched with a girl on Bumble recently, and this is what it said in her profile. It said, a rabbi called me hot, so that's how you know it's real. Now, I can tell some of you are shocked that a man of faith would hit on someone who's not a kid. But that's not how Jews roll, okay? We're all about regrowing our population. And little boys don't help with that. They're just for fun. Not our fun, other people's fun. No, us Jews, when we see a young boy, we do not molest. We circumcise. Okay, some folks touch kids in private, we mutilate them in public. Like civilized people. I don't know, it's actually pretty amazing that Jews have been so successful over the years. It is, because most of us have ancestors who fucked their cousins. Yeah, I can tell some of you are learning this for the first time. And it's because we've done a good job keeping it quiet. Like, I've heard every stereotype about Jews, and cousin fucking never comes up. Despite the fact that it's the most true and the most embarrassing. That's why when people say things like, Jews are cheap, I'm not mad. I'm relieved. I'm just like, whew, they haven't heard about the incest yet. You know? People are always like, Jews love money. I'm like, that's not the worst thing we've loved. If you only knew. Honestly, I think incest may have made Jews more successful. Yeah. You're probably thinking, Ben, that doesn't make any sense. Fucking your cousins makes your kids dumb. Not when your cousins are smart. Then you're just keeping all the good genes for yourself. People always thought Jews were hoarding gold. We were just hoarding our own DNA. Just standing in the corner looking at Christians like, you'll never be 5'2". Yeah, I'm Jewish, but I have a friend who speaks Greek. And the other day he was telling me, he's like, oh, I love being bilingual because if I don't want to talk to someone, I can just pretend like I don't speak English. And like that works for him because he's of Greek heritage. I'm bilingual, but I can't do that because the only other language I know is Mandarin. So like someone might believe that I speak Chinese, but no one's gonna believe that I only speak Chinese. And you're like, a white guy with no English? Probably from Beijing. Yeah. Asian parents adopt Caucasian baby. Tale as old as time. I've seen it a bunch. Yeah, I lived in China for 7 years, and I started studying Chinese in college, and back then all my buddies were really skeptical about it. They were like, oh, Ben, you're just learning Chinese to pick up Asian chicks. That's why you're doing it. And at the time, I had to be like, guys, I'm a virgin who's never had a girlfriend. What makes you think I'm ready to do this in a second language? In fact, when I hit on girls, the one thing I'm confident in is English. Okay? Even if I get rejected, I'm like, that sentence was perfect. I am killing it right now. See, my game is weak, but my grammar is strong. My friends are like, how did it go? I'm like, she understood. Yeah, but when I'm not a comedian, I actually teach Mandarin. Okay, none of you, no, you guys pause. None of you believe me. That's fine. I get it. It's weird, right? Me teaching Mandarin. Yeah, it is weird, yeah. For once, an American is stealing Chinese jobs. But I've learned a lot from teaching Chinese. One thing is that some people are way too optimistic about their ability to learn a language. Like I have this new adult student, and he's like a 65-year-old New Yorker. And before our first lesson, he goes, hey, I want to learn Chinese, but I don't need to become fluent. I'm like, don't worry, it's probably not going to happen. Like he was anxious about things being too easy. That's got to be a white guy thing, right? Has to be. Like, hey, what's your biggest fear? That stuff will just happen for me. It's really weighing heavily on me. It's a big concern. Imagine if I was such a good teacher that this guy became fluent in Chinese against his will. People are like, wow, how are you so good at Mandarin? And he's like, well, I got tricked. This guy said he was going to teach me a few words, but then he just kept going. Tried to say no, but I couldn't stop. He's in a job interview, and they're like, do you know any other languages? And he's like, unfortunately, yes. I picked up some Chinese, but I swear it was without my consent, okay? I also perform comedy in Chinese. And people have such a hard time believing that, they just choose to believe something else instead. Like the other day, a comic came up to me and he was like, hey man, I heard that on stage you do a Chinese accent. Isn't that racist? I'm like, not if you're speaking Chinese. I am single, I'm on the dating apps, and on dating app dates, you run out of stuff to talk about real quickly. Like I was on a date with a girl recently, there was a lull in the conversation, and she just goes, so, how are the apps going? I'm like, well, I'm on this date, so pretty bad. Now that might sound mean, but that was the nicest thing I could have said. Because imagine if she was like, how are the apps going? And I'm like, pretty good. Yeah. I'm actually drowning in pussy. Yeah, I'm here, but I don't need to be. I already found my soulmate. Now I'm just cheating on her. That's what brings me out tonight. But I'm on Hinge, and Hinge recently launched this verified feature. Like Instagram and Twitter, they put a check mark next to your name so people know that you're real. Which is great, because before on a dating app, the only way to know someone was real was if they were ugly. Yeah. You'd just be staring at Tinder like, well, I'm not hard, so she's legit. Nobody's looking like that on purpose. Because let's face it, to scam people on a dating app, you need to be hot. Like, no one's getting catfished into being with someone more attractive. That would be pretty cool, though, right? You're waiting at a restaurant, your date shows up, and you're like, Brad Pitt? I was expecting Steve Buscemi. What a pleasant surprise this has been. I like celebrity gossip, though. I actually heard recently that one of Zac Efron's ex-girlfriends complained that he went down on her too much. Yeah. I was like, is this ex-girlfriend on his PR team? Because that is incredibly flattering. That's like the opposite of getting Me Too'd. Like, hey, sex with Zac Efron is not good. It's great, okay? You're gonna wanna do it. I kind of agree with this girl. I don't think Zac Efron should be going down on women this much. Because if handsome Hollywood actors are also unselfish lovers, I got no chance. Because my whole pitch to women is, hey, I might not be a superstar, but I'll do the dirty work. Like, I'm no Michael Jordan, but I can be Dennis Rodman. And a Rodman type on the court, that's what you want in the bedroom, you know? A guy who's not the prettiest, but he's got energy, physicality, and a tongue ring, you know? That's what the ladies like. I used to work for the NBA. Yeah, none of you care. That's fine. I used to work for the NBA. I worked for them for about 5 years, and we would have all these events with former players. But when you work for the NBA, you're not allowed to call them former players or retired players. You have to call them NBA legends. No matter how good they were. So one time I was hosting an event and I'm trying to pump up the crowd. I'm like, please welcome NBA legend. And everyone's like, I'm like, Brian Scalabrine. They're like, what? Who? Him? He's not even black. Come on. No way that guy's a legend. Like, when you call every player a legend, it just sounds sarcastic. Kind of like when an old lady calls every little boy handsome. Okay, some of you got called handsome as boys and are now realizing it wasn't genuine. You know what I'm talking about, though, when an old woman's like, oh, aren't you a stud? And you're like, I'm 4 feet tall with bad acne. I am not a stud. I'm a legend. I've had a decent amount of one-night stands over the years. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. Oh, yeah, thanks. No, I've had a decent amount of one-night stands, which means when it comes to women, I am bad at keeping them. Like, I don't think women regret sleeping with me. They just don't feel compelled to do it again. Like, they're not ashamed, just underwhelmed. And I can respect that, because I don't mind disappointing women. That means they had expectations in the first place, which is a compliment. Because on paper, I look pretty good. I lived abroad, I'm well-traveled, I've been to 30 different countries, and couldn't find the clit in any of them. How many guys can say that? Yeah. Now, I moved to New York from China about 2.5 years ago, and when I moved here, I went through a bit of a sexual dry spell. To the point where I thought, man, I can't even remember the last time I had sex. But that's depressing. I don't want to tell people that. So instead, what I started saying is, man, I can't even remember the last time I had sex in America. Because that just makes it sound like I'm playing the game on a whole other level. Like, before I was pathetic, now I'm an international fuck machine. Like, this ain't no domestic dick. It's more like a foreign electrical plug. See, it fit into a lot of holes in Asia, but needs an adapter for the US. Okay, that was a little much for some of you. At the end there. Yeah, I am dating, and I matched with a girl the other day. She sent me a text. She goes, the last 5 guys I've gone out with have all ghosted me. Are you gonna do that? I'm like, no, I'm not like those other guys, okay? I will not go out with you. That was a big red flag you just shared. Staying as far away from you as I possibly can. but I'm 34, and I recently went on a date with a girl who was 24. Yeah, oof is the proper reaction to that. I did realize she was too young for me, because at one point she spilled her glass of red wine, and instead of using a napkin to sop it up, she used her hand to scrape it back in the glass. Yeah, sometimes a girl does one thing and you're like, that's not a wife. At least not yet. Maybe she'll get there eventually. Yeah, I'm trying to get better at dating, so I started watching Love on the Spectrum. Yeah. Okay, I can tell some of you have seen it. For those of you who haven't, it's a show about folks with autism looking for love, and it's a great show because it really toes a fine line between celebrating autism but also acknowledging the struggle. Because they really talk these kids up. They're like, autism is a gift. You are so smart and so talented. You are an amazing person. And the kid's like, thanks. Do you have any advice for my date? And they're like, yeah, be a little less autistic. Like the whole show is just parents going, hey, be yourself, but also tone it down. You talk about snakes a lot. And it's not working. That's why we're on the show. This place is nice, though. I perform at a lot of crappy dive bars in this city. And I was at one the other night. It was late. I walked through the bar. I walked by a group of girls, and one of them just goes, this guy's trying to fuck me. Then some other dude just goes, no. I'm trying to fuck everyone. I'm like, wow, that just sums up every bar. A woman being like, I don't feel safe. And a guy going, none of you are safe. Yeah, when I was at that bar, this lady actually came up to me and she goes, hey, have you ever slept with a black woman? She was black, by the way. Otherwise, that would be a really strange question. Like, imagine if she was Irish. So, have you ever slept with a black woman? If so, that's a deal breaker. No, no, no. Yeah, she was black. And I was like, no, I've never been with a black woman. She goes, why? I'm like, I don't know. It just never happened. She goes, if you wanted it to happen, it would have happened. I'm like, that is not how consent works. Like, I'm pretty sure most men's problem with sex isn't that they don't want it enough. In fact, there's a whole TV show about men who really, really want sex. It's called Law & Order SVU. Every episode, they're like, what happened? And someone's like, he was horny and handled it poorly. That's 24 seasons, guys. I summarized the entire show. You don't need to watch it now. You're welcome. I don't know if any of you guys saw, there's a show on Netflix called How to Build a Sex Room. Yeah, How to Build a Sex Room. I don't know about you, but I've never been horny enough to do construction. Like, that feels a little overboard to me. Like, oh, babe, I'm gonna go to town on you, but first, we gotta renovate. This space is all off. Beige carpeting, floral wallpaper. What is this, my grandma's house? I like reality TV, though. I do. I just don't like on reality shows when people get eliminated but try to put a positive spin on it. Like, have you ever seen some guy get kicked off a cooking show and he'll be like, man, this was so great. I made so many deep friendships. It's like, well, you also made a really bad cake, so that's why you're going home. Sometimes they'll even be like, man, this was the best experience of my life. It's like, really, the best experience of your life was failing at your dream? That can't be true. That's too sad. I don't want to believe that. But it bothers me because they never admit that they're sad to be leaving. For once, when someone asks if they're disappointed, I want them to be like, yeah, I'm probably going to kill myself. This was my last chance and it didn't pan out. Without that 100K, the bank's going to take the house. The wife already left. I got nothing to live for. Then then the show's just got to be like, next week on Kooky Kitchen Calamities, can Gary make a souffle? What about Bob's marriage? I know he's eliminated, but I feel like someone should be watching him. I also like true crime. Big fan of true crime. Any true crime fans here? Yes, we do have white women. Okay. Yeah, that checks out. Yeah. I like true crime. I do. My favorite part about true crime is when they tell you additional negative things about the person, as if their criminal history was not enough to dislike them. It'll be like, Ted Bundy killed 30 women. Also, not a fan of the Jews. It's like, we get it. He's bad. You want me to be shocked? Like, what? He hates Jews, then why does he have so many in his trunk? Who collects things they don't like? Honestly, I've watched so much true crime that I get desensitized to the crimes these people commit. But then I'll judge them for stuff that's way less serious. Yeah. They'll be like, he stabbed 7 people. I'm like, okay. And they're like, he's a vegan. I'm like, man, this guy sucks. Yeah. Say what you want. At least Dahmer didn't let his victims go to waste. Nice. You guys watched that Dahmer thing on Netflix, right? That was great. That was great. You might have remembered this. There was this episode where he goes to jail and he's walking down the cell block, and the other dudes are looking at him and they're like, "Oh, he messes with children. Fuck that guy." And I'm watching this, thinking to myself, "Wow, these prisoners really care about kids." Like, this death row inmate would make such a great dad. Like, my dad's pretty good, but he never killed a pedophile. Like, that's next level love. Yeah. Like, what's better, the dad who tells you the monster isn't real or the dad who murders the monster? Seriously, who loves children more than someone who kills pedophiles? Well, pedophiles, but... It's so close. It's right there. I like living in New York, though. I do. Because, New York is such a diverse place. You can just move here and become a part of the community pretty quickly. Like, I got a friend, she moved here from Cleveland like 6 months ago. And she's like, oh my God, I'm a New Yorker now. I did it. People do this. They move to New York and then claim their New York identity immediately, which is bizarre to me. Because I lived in Shanghai for 7 years, and I was never like, oh my God, I'm Chinese now. I did it. Because let me tell you something, guys. You can become American, but you can't become Chinese. Okay, if you're not born that way, you're out of luck. Because America, we're very idealistic. We're like, oh, it's all about the American spirit and the can-do attitude. China's like, it's genetics. Because if someone says they're becoming American, you're like, oh, they're getting citizenship. But if someone says they're becoming Chinese, you're like, oh, they're getting invaded. But I get asked a lot of questions about living in China. Most of them are about dating Asian women. And a lot of times people ask very judgmentally. They'll say stuff like, oh, Ben, does being with a tiny little Asian girl make you feel like a big, strong man? Does that inflate your ego, being with a little Asian girl? Does it make you feel good about yourself, being with a tiny little Asian girl? Does that inflate your ego? I'm like, no, it doesn't inflate my ego, because Asian women don't make you feel good about yourself. They are brutally honest and harsh. Just look at Asian moms. They're disappointed with an A-. You think they're going to be impressed by your D? But some women, they will kind of inflate your ego in bed. You know, they'll say stuff like, oh my God, it's so big. Oh my God, it's so hard. But I've been with Chinese girls who've said, oh, how shufu. Which means, oh, it's so comfortable. It's like, comfortable? I'm trying to split you open. I'm not going for comfortable. You just described my penis like a beanbag chair. That's not nice at all. But yeah, a lot of people don't know how to react when they find out I lived in Shanghai. A lot of times, they're just more respectful of Asians when I'm around. Like they're worried about upsetting me. Like the other day, I heard a guy say Oriental. Then his friend was like, dude, you can't say that. Ben's Chinese. I'm like, no, you can't say that because it's wrong. My approval doesn't determine racism. That would be a bad system. Like, imagine people were talking shit about Asians and they were like, ooh, Ben doesn't like that. I'm like, actually, I do. I'm a big fan of hatred and you guys do it so well. I lived in China. I speak for all Asians. It's fine. Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, people are more respectful of Chinese people when I'm around, which has taught me a valuable lesson that if you want to stop Asian hate, all you got to do is be white. You know why? Because it's easy to stop something that you started. Yeah. Like if Asians are the only ones fighting to stop Asian hate, it's never going to work. Because racists are bullies, and bullies don't usually listen to the people they bully. Like when was the last time you saw a guy getting his ass kicked and he's like, oh, I don't like that. And the bully's like, oh shit, really? I had no idea. Why didn't you say something? If I had known, I would have stopped decades ago. But you know who bullies do listen to? Other bullies. That's why if you're a white dude, you got to talk to the other white dude and be like, hey, we got to stop Asian hate. They'll be like, why? You're like, because hating Asians is gay. You got to meet him on his level. Sure, now he might be a bit homophobic, but you'll kick that can down the road and figure that one out later. Yeah, coming back to America, a lot more guns here than in China. I don't have any guns. I don't begrudge anyone who does, but personally, I don't own guns because I feel like before you own guns, you should own furniture. And I'm not there yet. Okay? Like having weapons and nothing else is not the American dream. That's the North Korean dream. But my uncle's always trying to convince me to get a gun. He's like, Ben, for safety, I keep a pistol under my bed. I'm like, I don't have a bed. Okay? I got nothing to protect. If I had a gun and someone broke into my house, you know what they would steal? My gun. They'd be like, oh, what should we take? This revolver or these 15 empty water bottles? It's real tough. No, I don't live that badly, but I have a friend who does. He pays $300 a month and sleeps on someone's couch. That's his living arrangement. And I asked him about it. I was like, dude, do you bring girls back there? And he's like, yeah, we fuck on the floor. Yeah. He's like, you know how charming you need to be to get a woman to fuck you on the floor? I'm like, yeah, I feel like it would be easier to just make money. Like, if you can afford a mattress, women really lower their standards. Like, ladies are pretty open-minded these days. Like, they will give you head as long as you put a roof over it. That's all they're looking for. Yeah, no, I don't live in a place that bad. My mom visited me recently, and I wouldn't have wanted to show her a place like that. My mom is the type of person, she means well, but sometimes she just has crazy ideas. The other day we were talking on the phone, and this is how she starts the conversation. She goes, Ben, I'm not saying you should change careers, but the government was looking for people who speak Chinese who can go over there and gather intelligence. Now, I'm not saying you just go to China and become a spy. I'm like, that's exactly what you're saying. She's like, no, just go over there, listen in on a couple people, and come back. I'm like, the CIA is not a part-time hobby. You can't just do covert missions whenever you feel like it. Like, hey, Ben, what'd you get up to this weekend? Not much, just some Netflix and espionage. But I don't know why my mom thinks I would be good at this. Because to be a spy, you gotta be sneaky and inconspicuous. But I can tell you guys from experience, when you're a white guy in China, you don't exactly blend in. Okay? People see you and immediately are like, that guy's up to something. I don't know what, but it's definitely not regular Chinese stuff. You think he flew here 15 hours to not fuck shit up? I don't think so. So I told this to my mom and she goes, I don't know. I feel like you'd be good at keeping a low profile. I'm like, why? She goes, well, you perform on stage every night and still nobody knows who you are. My mom is a great lady. She was a nurse for over 30 years, which is fantastic. And thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, my mom was a nurse for 30 years, and on top of that, in the 90s when I was growing up, she also volunteered at an AIDS hotline supporting patients with HIV, which was a really tough job, because in the 90s, the AIDS hotline had very limited resources. And they all went to Magic Johnson. Because he was the only person with HIV that anybody cared about. That sucks, but we've come a long way. We have more empathy for people with HIV. But I can't imagine having to get treatment back then, because you go to the doc, and you'd be like, "Doc, really want to fight this. What do I got to take? Do I got to take AZT? Do I got to take DDC? Do I got to take SQV?" And he's like, "No, you got to take the Lakers to the finals. Otherwise, there's nothing I can do for you. I'm very sorry." But I am a big sports fan. My big first sport growing up that I was into was baseball. Any baseball fans here? Okay, 7. I'm doing the joke anyway. Yeah. I'm a big baseball fan. I don't know if any of you saw this, but last year there was a baseball announcer that got fired for saying the N-word on the air. Yeah. Okay. Apparently that's normal for you guys. I thought it was weird. So what happened was they were in Kansas City, which is the home of the museum for the former Black Baseball League, which is called the Negro Leagues. And what happened was the announcer said that he and the other announcer took a visit to the Negro League Museum, but that is not what came out of his mouth. Yeah. He got canned. People were very upset. It was a whole mess. People were very mad, including a friend of mine who was like, in 2023, how could this happen? How could he have said the N-word instead of Negro? And I wanted to be like, yeah, what the hell? But what I ended up saying was, well, the two words are kind of similar. Like, he definitely shouldn't have said it, but is it unbelievable that it happened? Like, my name's Ben, and today someone called me Josh. That's a much bigger mistake. Like, not a worse mistake, but like a bigger one in magnitude. Also, what he was supposed to say, Negro, not that much better of a word. Better, but not like way better. Like, saying Negro instead of the N-word is like going, "Hey, my wife's not a cunt, she's a bitch." You shouldn't just be throwing it out there. Yeah. If you're a white guy and you're saying Negro, it better be followed by league or spiritual. Those are your only options. Otherwise, it is a no-go on Negro. Honestly, I feel uncomfortable just saying Negro League. I do. You wouldn't know it by how many times I've said Negro in this joke, but I swear. But no, crazy stuff happens in this city. For real. Like the other day, this homeless guy just came up to me and he was like, "Hey, can I fuck you for a little bit?" Yeah. I love how he said "for a little bit." As if that was gonna sweeten the deal. Like the biggest obstacle to him having sex with me was time. You're like, "No, sir, I will not fuck you for more than 10 minutes. I'm busy, okay? I've got a 3 o'clock to fuck a different homeless guy." This made me realize a homeless guy asking you for sex is way more awkward than one asking you for money. Because you can pretend to not have money. But we can all be fucked at any time. You can't be like, "Oh, sorry, I left my asshole at home." Yeah, I saw a homeless guy in the subway the other morning, and I felt really bad for him because he was in rough shape. But I felt even worse for him because he had a Jamaican accent. And I don't know if you've ever heard a Jamaican accent before, but it's pretty chipper, festive, and boisterous. So this guy's life was really sad, but he sounded so happy about it. Like he just came on the train like, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm struggling big time." I'm like, "Really? It sounds like you're thriving." He's like, "My wife left me, I got nobody." I'm like, this is the best reggae song. Because most homeless guys just go, "I'm hungry." But this dude was like, "Give me some breakfast, man." But as I was walking out of the subway, I saw a poster for a charity boxing match. It had a picture of the two fighters on the poster. One of the fighters had tattoos, big biceps, and a six-pack, and the other had Down syndrome. Now, maybe this is a fair fight, but the optics are bad. I'm like, who organized this? The 5th grade? Like, it's crazy. And it got me thinking. The idea of mentally challenged people fighting, is that conservative or progressive? Because I could talk myself into either one. Because the left might be like, we need to stop this ableist bullshit. Anyone should be able to participate in sports regardless of race, religion, ethnicity, or medical condition. Sounds pretty progressive. But then the right might be like, hey, freedom means you can hit anyone, no matter how many chromosomes they have. Yeah, if you haven't punched a retard, you're not a real American. So I still don't know, is what I'm trying to say. People think New York is very progressive, and I guess it is, but you find people all over the spectrum, even the homeless population. Like I saw a homeless guy walk into a pizza place the other day. He started arguing with the owner. Then eventually he walked out. But as he walked out, he looked at the owner and went, hey, go back to your country, faggot. I was thinking to myself, in America, we've done a lot of bad stuff to gay people, but we've never deported them. Like, this guy was so bigoted, he just invented a new hate crime. He's just talking to his buddies like, you ever seen a dude so flamboyant you just want to send him to Italy? It's like, what? Is that a thing? If so, we're gay. You want to punish us? We could use a vacation. Now, America's changing a lot. They got rid of Aunt Jemima. Yeah. Does anyone know what that company's called now? Yeah, exactly. It's called the Pearl Milling Company. And I hadn't seen a commercial for it yet until the other day. I saw a commercial for it, and at the end of the commercial, it goes, Pearl Milling Company, the same great taste as Aunt Jemima. I'm like, wow, they are not ready to let go. They're like, Pearl Milling Company, we used to be racist. And you loved it. We're woke now, but let's not forget the good times. So apparently, they're still using the Aunt Jemima name, but they've just gotten rid of all pictures, which I think is a wasted opportunity. Like, they could have given some other group some much-needed representation. Like Aunt Jemima, instead of a black matron, she could have been a Puerto Rican lady with a fat ass. Yeah, we could have solved racism with sexism. A little eye candy, who wouldn't say no to that? Like, if Aunt Jemima had a big booty, that commercial would have written itself. Just a giant ass next to some flapjacks, and it's like, Aunt Jemima, she got them cakes. It's perfect. But I think if someone is over the top and telling you they're not racist, they're probably a little racist, right? A little over the top. Like, have you ever seen these guys that are like, color doesn't matter to me. I don't care if you're green, blue, purple. It's like, how about skin tones that actually exist? Like, I want to know if you're cool with minorities, not if you're racist against the Teletubbies. That's what they'll say. They'll be like, I don't care if you're turquoise, indigo, violet. How about brown? Okay? Because your daughter's with an Indian guy. Are you cool with that, or do you wish she was dating Shrek? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Yeah. Speaking of racism, I was hanging out the other day with 3 other Caucasians. As it should be. No, just kidding. Just kidding. And at one point, one of them goes, when did they ban the transatlantic slave trade? And none of us knew. And I wasn't sure if that was a good or a bad thing. You might say, Ben, of course it's a bad thing. You're white, you have white privilege, you should be familiar with the history of racial oppression. But on the other hand, if you're a white guy who knows the exact end of the slave trade to the day, that's a little suspicious. Because if you say early 19th century, people are like, oh, he's educated. But if you go March 2nd, 1807, people are like, oh, he's in the KKK. Because the dates you remember, those are the worst ones. Like national tragedies like Pearl Harbor, 9/11, the end of the McRib, the big 3, you know. All the worst ones. But I think it's good to get rid of stereotypes. I do. Because when you get rid of stereotypes, it helps to get you closer to the truth about people. But it doesn't always get you closer to a positive opinion. Because the truth is not always flattering. Like, I lived in Shanghai for many years. I learned some amazing things about Chinese culture and history. But I also learned that not all Chinese people are smart. Yeah. I used to think they were because I grew up ignorant. I didn't know that many Chinese people. And all the ones I did know were brilliant overachievers who ruined the curve in every class. Then I moved to China and I was like, oh, all the dumb ones are here. Turns out if you're smart enough to escape communism, calculus is pretty easy. When I tell someone I lived in China, I can actually tell how old they are by how quickly they mention communism. Like, the older they are, the quicker it comes up. Like, if I tell anyone under 40 that I lived in China, they'll be like, wow, that must have been an incredible experience for you. You know, they do that shoulder thing. But the other day I was talking to a guy who was like 70. I told him I lived in China, and he goes, Red China? I'm like, what are you, a newspaper from the 60s? Reporting on the Iron Curtain? Who talks like that? Also, he said Red China as if there's any other China I could have been referring to. Like, Red China? I'm like, no, China, Pennsylvania. It's right near historic Bethlehem. Yeah, in China, there's actually a big gender gap. Because of, like, adoption and abortion, there are 40 million more men than women. Yeah. But according to the government, all the men are straight. I don't know about you, but that math doesn't add up to me. I feel like some of those dudes are stuck having traditional Chinese gay sex. When I say that, some people get mad at me. They're like, Ben, being gay isn't a choice. I'm like, I know, they had no choice. All the women were taken. Yeah. And there are a lot of Chinese families, they might have a hard time coming to grips with the fact that they have a gay son. And I get that. But if you didn't want a gay son, you could have just kept your daughter. But now she's with a white family in Ohio, who also didn't want a gay son. So it worked out well for everybody. Yeah. Dating is tough, though. It is. I heard recently that male pattern baldness is a sign of high testosterone. Yeah. Which means that if you're into guys, you might have to choose between good hair and good dick. And I have very good hair. So now whenever I see a woman with a bald guy, I'm like, she knows. Because she looks happy. Then I'll see a girl running her hands through a guy's hair like, it's so soft. I'm like, yeah, I bet it is. Yeah. I guess when it comes to women, I'm more of a boob guy. But I wish I was a butt guy. I do. Because if you're a butt guy, there are ways to discreetly touch your woman's butt in public. But you can't touch a boob in public. Even if a woman wants you to, it feels wrong. I think it's because butt touching is a lot more normalized in our society. You know, because guys slap each other's butts in sports. A lot of people got spanked as a kid. But I've never seen a parent be like, you're in big trouble, mister. Don't you talk back to me. Just wait till your father gets home. This hurts me more than it hurts you. So I'm single. But for a while, I dated a girl who was a twin. Yeah, but she got mad that I found them both attractive. I'm like, but you're twins. If I'm attracted to you, I'm going to be attracted to your brother. I don't get the problem here. Yeah. I've never had full-on gay sex. But every straight guy talks about hypothetical gay sex in the exact same way. You know, they'll be like, oh, I would be a top for sure. I'm definitely a top. I've been fucking things my whole life. I'm obviously a top. Not me. I'm a bottom. And I know it. Okay? It's not because I like butt stuff, okay? It's because if you're a bottom, you don't need to be hard. And that sounds great. Like, as long as I have a tush, I can perform. Like, I'm sure bottoming hurts, but you know what hurts more? Disappointing your lover. Okay, I'll take a sore asshole over a bruised ego any day of the week. Like, that's the great thing about gay sex. If one of you can't get it up, there's always a backup dick. He just comes up behind you like, don't worry, buddy, I got this. Anyways, you guys have been so awesome. Thank you so much. You've been great, and I've been Frank. Thank you so much, guys.